Man, how can that music not get you going, man? That music, again, I love every minute of it. Custom beat by my man Jeff, the audio assassin. You want some beats? Check him out. He is fantastic. Hook me up. I told him I want a little like Halloween Michael Myers theme with a little football theme for the final judgment, which that segment will be coming back very, very shortly, which will be fun. But again, this is Heat Ratio Sports, HRS Late Nights. I'm your host, Tony Cutillo. As always, we're here. Just got done with a great show right here on HRS. Dave Glecter, Mark Tomasini, Fourth and Go Boys. A lot of interaction on that show. Dave dropped the bell ringer report today talking about Jason Kelsey. There's so many things on my mind tonight. I really really want to get into. As always, call lines are open, comments open. Listen, it's I gotta give a shout out real fast, my man Starship. If I don't know if he's going to join the program or not tonight, but oh, great dude, man. Seriously, it's one of the reasons why I love doing this, along with everybody who's avid, like Javon and Joe and Adam. But Starship, man, like he hit me with some great voice messages, and it's so nice to talk intellectually and professionally with somebody. Like when I go to Joe and I ask him about, obviously his wheelhouse is baseball and the statistical data that he bring up and the trends and things of that nature. And Starship, me and him just go back and forth about what's going on with the Eagles, and it's just so nice to be able to do that. So I wanted to give a shout out to my man, and just let everybody know, man, anything on your mind, my DMs are open. I'm going to get a mailbag line open soon. I'm not stopping with this time, man. We're going all in. I've been back and forth on what I really want to do and how I want to do it, and I just think that this is made for what I want to do because I'm a night owl kind of guy. I like to manage my stuff during the day. If everybody doesn't know, I am a PR guy. I'm a media pro. I have my own PR company. Do a lot of marketing work. Have several clients. I do a lot of day to day stuff. But this is, obviously my wheelhouse. This is what I want to do, and I'm so glad I've been able to continue to do this. So if you're watching this on X and you're watching this on Instagram, you're watching this on Facebook, or you're watching this on YouTube, bring those comments in. What's on your mind? What are you feeling? I had a lot of topics tonight. I'm trying to really switch the narrative a little bit because we've talked so much about the Philadelphia Eagles, like literally, like so much about the Philadelphia Eagles. I'm not opposed to talking about the Philadelphia Eagles. Obviously, the word comes out that I think we all knew, that listen, they made a mistake with TJ Edwards. I think we all know that. And they don't value linebacker. Are they ever going to value linebacker? I don't know. But he wasn't even offered a contract. It wasn't even like they lowballed him. They just were like, whatever, just get out. Crazy, man. Crazy. I say it all the time. My man Joe checking in already says, Lori is busy yacht shopping. Philly, same roster. Sixers might advance this year, and some team named the Flyers are kind of good. Kind of sums up everything in the world of Philadelphia sports. But not only Philadelphia sports, remember, we talk all things on this show. We mainly direct it into Philly, obviously, but it's Royal Rumble season too. So we got to talk about that a little bit as well, because we're going back tonight, reminiscing Casket Classic. If anybody doesn't know, that the infamous casket match at the Royal Rumble in the 90s between Undertaker and Shawn Michaels, the Heartbreak Kid. Again, just a great memory, a great memory. But Joe, I got some questions about the Philadelphia Phillies, because before we even get into any Eagles talk, let's start with the Phillies night. And you are right though. Props and shout out to the Philadelphia Flyers. The orange and black is giving this town something to talk about, right? Like I'm not talking about like Bonnie Raitt, let's give them something to talk about. I'm literally talking that it's buzzing with the orange and black right now in Philadelphia. And they might actually be good enough to break some barriers on the Philadelphia radio waves. Just throwing it out there. Listen, I've said it all the time. I'm not a tremendously big hockey guy, but at the same token, if they're hot and they are garnering our attention and respect, I'll talk about them because I was a hockey guy. I didn't get out of hockey because I don't like the sport. I didn't get out of hockey because it was boring. I just got out of hockey because it was the one sport that I never took crazy amount of time to analyze deep like I do with basketball, baseball, and football. My man David checking in. What's up, David? David, I got a good topic for you tonight because we're going down memory lane. And I'm going to ask you, along with everybody else, why I feel, or am I wrong for feeling that Ryan Howard does not get the respect that he deserves when it comes to a national Philadelphia level. I don't think he's talked about enough. The 4 or 5 year stretch he had was absolutely legendary. Nobody will ever run those statistics again. Just a shame how quick it went down, blew out the Achilles, but at the same time, the moments that he gave us, I think, were tremendous. And I saw a quick highlight today, which kind of brought it up, and I was like, wow, we should be able to see more. I think Ryan Howard's actually trending on X, and I think that's what happened. It was in my trending folder, and I was just thinking, wow. I think it was the game where they smoked Tampa in the World Series. I think they scored like 10, 11 runs. He hit that like Gatorade moonshot up there in right field. And I was just thinking about it and saying, we've had a lot of legends in this town, but Ryan Howard, again, I mean, for everything that happened with that whole scenario, right? When you think about it, and not to get off, not to get off the topic of, Harper that I'm going to talk about, but let's stick on the big piece because you guys are picking it up, and I'm getting passionate right now thinking about it. Getting passionate thinking about it because, you know, when you break it all down, it was so legendary the way the entire thing happened, right? And the reason why I say that is because again, you're looking at the new ballpark being built. You're looking at what they're trying to do is you're saying, let's let's bring it in. And let's say we need a couple a couple pieces that are really going to bring in the fans. And it was still with the vet at that time. But we knew Citizens Bank Park was being built. So you're out there and listen, they courted Jim Thome, right? Absolutely courted Jim Thome. David Bell was a stiff. That was a miss, but they had to spend some money. They tried to get Tom Glavine, didn't work, right? Tom Glavine didn't come here. But Jim Thome, I think, was actually even better than they thought he was going to be. What a sweet swing Jim Thome had. Jim Thome. I mean, you talk about Jim Thome as a guy that nobody really knew. You talk about Bryce Harper being Philly. Jim Thome was Philly. And you know why Jim Thome was Philly? Jim Thome was Philly because he not only did the tour, and I'm going to bring this up, and Joe's going to laugh at this because I bring this shit up all the time because I remember the chase with Manny Machado and Bryce Harper, right? And I remember it vividly. And I used to say, before I even saw this footage, before I even saw the footage, I used to say, Manny Machado is not a Philly guy. And they were like, what do you mean? I was like, I'm just telling you, he's not a Philly guy. He's all about Manny. He's all, he's not a blue collar kind of guy. He is just about Manny. Everybody's like, oh, you're just doing that by his appearance. I'm like, dude, I'm telling you, that's the way he is 100%. And then they showed an image when he pulled up to go meet with the Phillies. And he got out, and there was a guy on the side, blue collar kind of dude sitting on the side. He didn't give him the time of day, man. He didn't give him the time of day. Now, when Bryce Harper comes to town right away, he's shaking hands. He's talking to people. And when Jim Thome came here, he went right to the union workers, man. He knew right there. I was like, nobody breathes Philly like the steelworkers, or or the journeyman for the plumbers union, right? Or the sprinkler fitters union. Nobody breathes Philly like that. And Jim Tomey went right there. Right there, he knew. And right there, you were like, this dude's all Philly. He put a helmet on, hard hat. He was like, let's go. Let's get a picture. My man David says Ryan Howard's a living legend. Joe says Big Piece would make everyone at Citizens Bank stop and watch it back. That's huge, man. That's huge, because when you think about it, not many people were must-see TV. If you like, this is why I want to do this show. I'm gonna be honest with you. This is why I want to do this show, not tonight's show specifically, but HRS Late Nights, because look at these comments coming in, because I know as well as you do, as much as we want to talk about birds and as much as we want to talk, you throw in a dial, you get sick of the same shit over and over again, right? And every now and then you start bringing up some topics, it starts reminiscing and getting you passionate and getting you excited and say, you know what? Yeah, let's get an alternative. Like, look, no disrespect. I know them dudes got to talk about what they need to talk about. I get it, right? I'm not talking about what's your favorite movie. I'm not talking about any of that. What I'm saying is sports history, and that's what we're talking about. And when Joe says must-see TV, must stop and watch as it bat, Barry Bonds was must-see TV. Whether you want to anything, I don't want to get into steroids talk. All I'm saying is Barry Bonds was must-see TV. Ken Griffey Jr., in my opinion, was must-see TV. Mark McGuire, when he was going for the race, was must-see TV. Whether you want to say it or not, was must-see TV. There's not many other people that I can say was must-see TV. And I'll tell you this. Bryce Harper could very well be must-see TV. Just the entire aura about Bryce Harper. David says Philadelphia Phillies would have won back-to-back World Series against that Yankee series. Just gives me bad memories, David. All I remember is no bat and gloves, Jorge Posada and Johnny Damon, and Johnny Damon, such a fraud. I can't believe we got beat by that Yankees team. We should have 100% whooped them and won back-to-back. And I'll never forget, my man Pedro goes out there and throws a gem in that series, and we don't do nothing with it, man. He threw a gem. Everybody forget, man, Pedro was a hell of a pickup by Ruben Amaro Jr. that year. Hell of a pickup. I'm a big Pedro guy. Love Pedro Martinez. Whether you talk about Montreal, whether you talk about Boston, it doesn't. I love Pedro Martinez. I liked watching him pitch so much. I loved his attitude. I did. I thought he was very charismatic. Right? He went back and forth with the fans. He got it. He understood it. I was a Pedro guy. I really was. David says, I respect Ryan Howard. He deserves respect. He gets, and that's the thing, David. I don't think he gets enough. I don't. Joe says, imagine if Ryan Howard didn't waste years in the mine. That's a great point, because that's kind of gets me back to what I was saying. When they brought in Jim Tomey, they knew that they needed a piece, and they needed a revenue driver. They needed somebody that was going to sell tickets, because they were building this ridiculously big ballpark. And at that time, and still at this time, it always is a football town. It's an Eagles town, right? When they built the Link, even though people bitched and moaned about the seat license, it didn't matter. They all sold out. Everything sold out. So the Phillies, though, they didn't know if that was going to happen. So they need to go out and spend that revenue that they already, that preconceived notion of the money they were going to get back, and they had to get some guys, and Tomey was their target. That was their main guy. They want to get Tomey. But the funny thing is, and it's just ironic, I don't think it's anybody to blame. I think, because if you think about it, I've heard people say, "Oh, they made such a big mistake. They had Ryan Howard." I get it, but they couldn't take the chance of just saying, "Well, we're going to bring Ryan Howard up, and he's going to be the poster boy." Like, they didn't know how Ryan Howard was going to automatically convert to the Major League Baseball action and game. They had no idea. They had no idea. So they had to take it's just ironic that you bring in a first baseman, right? And there's no DH. Can you imagine if they had the universal DH now? If they had it then, and you were able to bring up Howard, and you had Howard and Tomey in the same friggin' lineup? Oh, like that would be just unheard of. David says Jim Tomey, Mr. Indians, Mr. Phillies. Yup. 100%, man. Javon checking in says Ryan Howard made me really care about baseball when I was a teen. It was cool to see a black baseball player succeed and be one of the top home run hitters in the league. I love it. Absolutely right. Because at a time, right? At a time, let's be honest with you. Let's be honest. Right? At that time, it was nice to see that. It was. Listen, there's no mistake about it. There's no mistake about it. I'm going to say this, and I don't want to get controversial here. Okay? I don't want to get controversial here. But if you are jaded enough to not believe that there is a little bit of a narrative here, especially in the baseball world, and what I mean by that is take two players. Take Chase Utley, take Jimmy Rollins. Okay? Take both of those players. Look at Bryce Harper right now. And I'm not just going to say, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm not just saying it's a black and white thing. Okay? But it's the stereotype. And what I mean by that is Jimmy Rollins was the flashy guy. Jimmy Rollins was the trendy guy. Jimmy Rollins didn't run out a chopper to third base or a chopper to the pitcher. We're calling for his job. But Bryce Harper doesn't do it, and we don't say a damn word. Now, I know Chase Utley never did, but if Chase Utley doesn't do it, nobody says a word. But if Jimmy Rollins does it, we want to kill Jimmy Rollins. Kill him. Come on, man. Because again, you have that old school kind of like mindset, right? Even though Jackie Robinson broke the barriers of the game, let's not be naive and think that those same people that were trying to keep Jackie out of the game aren't still with us today, right? And I'm not afraid to talk about it because it's the freaking truth. And those same people are the dudes that are burying Jimmy Rollins and not burying Bryce Harper. It's as simple as that, man. And that's why I like Javon's comment, man. It was cool because, again, like the people that would get, and I'm keeping this comment up because I'm very, very passionate about subjects like this. And I'm not that guy that shies away from them. I'm not afraid to talk about them. Okay? I'm not. And we can talk about whatever you want. And the reason why I'm not is because I know history. And history speaks for itself. Javon knows history. Joe knows history. And if you're listening to the show, you don't know history, go look back. I mean, obviously, you shouldn't have to be told who Jackie Robinson is and what the story is. And if you do, you better go watch 42. But at the same time, you can't be naive enough to not know the history. And when you do know the history like I do, you're not afraid to touch this kind of subject. And it was cool because, again, watching Ryan Howard do it was good for baseball. It was great for baseball. Again, because you're coming off of, think about it. You had your kind of, I would say, handful of African-American power hitters. Crime Dog, Fred McGriff, first person that kind of comes to my mind thinking about, but again, never really pushed. I mean, think about it. You had guys like Mark Teixeira getting more love than Crime Dog Fred McGriff. And I'm not saying it's because McGriff was a black baseball player. I'm just saying It's the audience, right? It's the perception of the audience. The percentage of that perception is what brings this kind of point to highlight. And I don't mind talking about it. And it's great. I agree with Javon. Javon, here you go. Here's a stat that you'll like and that everybody will like. Speaking of Ryan Howard, okay? So Ryan Howard's 4-year that the 4-year Major League Baseball magic, okay? That 4-year span that I'm talking about, 198 home runs and 572 RBIs. Are you kidding me? 198 home runs, 572 RBIs in a 4-year span. Who else is doing that? That was unheard of. And those numbers do not get talked about enough. They don't. They just don't. This dude was an absolute stud. Joe says, when many came in Philly, looked like a small town with the reporter standing out there waiting for Clintack, had the door locked. He's talking about, man, he's such a lame look that it was so ridiculous. Remember, you try to open it, like, what are you doing, man? Like, Clintack, you talk about a stiff. Seriously. That dude, Clintack, he couldn't even get the job done. It took Middleton to hop on a plane to lock up Bryce Harper because Harper, and if you ever saw Harper's dad, you're probably thinking the same thing. They were like, who's this dude? Like, bro, like, get this dude out of here. I can't talk to this guy anymore. Give me somebody who knows how to talk. Right. And what I mean is they were like, this Clintack guy? Nah, let me get it. And Clintack was probably like, yeah, you know what? At the same time, I don't know if we're going to be able to get this done. And Middleton was like, what do you mean we're not going to get this done? No, we're going to get it done because I'm going to hop on a plane and get that shit done myself. And that's what he did. Right. And I think it's hilarious because Clintack, wow, what a dope. Sorry. Not to use Eskin's word, but I'm being speaking of Eskin, let's talk about that later too. I'm a little perturbed at what I read before I got on here, but David's already getting in the wrestling talk. Undertaker, on my mind, should be 11-time WWF champion. Listen, Taker's a stud, man. Taker's a stud. In my mind, should be Angels versus Phillies in the World Series 2009. Yeah, he's going back. Like, he's going to go back Anaheim. Look at these names that my man David is pulling out. He's talking about my favorite memory is when he's an Angels guy, is when his Anaheim Angels won the 2002 World Series. And he's talking about Troy Gloss, Darren Erstad, David Eckstein, John Lackey, Cena. John Lackey. There's a name. My Lord. John Lackey. Oh, Troy Gloss. Like, you know what? Like, Troy Gloss to me legitimately reminds me of, like the Santa Claus 2, when he replicates those toy soldiers. Like, that's how big Troy Gloss looked to me. It looked like he was swinging a toothpick. Like, I swear to God, he had it looked like he had the skinniest back because this dude was so jacked and so big, man. Troy Gloss had some really good years. He really did. But great player, man. Listen, that was a good team. Really, really good team. But I'll tell you what, man, if your team is the Angels, your boy Artie Moreno, he screwed that team up, man. There's no way in hell you're letting Shohei Ohtani go. Like, how does that even happen? Like, seriously, it's just ridiculous. That's a topic for another day. Joe says, until the Phillies, this is a good point. Until the Phillies became a contender, Howard had nobody hitting behind him. There was no Jason Worth, right? There was nobody to protect Ryan Howard, and he still was knocking the cover off the ball. You know why? Because at that time, remember that was a challenge, right? Those pitchers were saying to themselves, I'm not letting this young kid beat me. And he hit everything, man. He hit everything. It was insane to see the amount of power he had. It really was. Joe says, Rollin, here's this is exactly like the MLB writers, the voters, I should say. They need to get these dudes off the ballot. Seriously. I don't like Rollins getting less votes than Utley is crazy. He writes, but then again, there were 16 voters that left Maddox off. Who leaves Greg Maddox off? Like who? 16 dudes left Greg Maddox off for the first time. Greg Maddox is a locked-in, surefire Hall of Famer, man. Are you kidding me? Like those are guys again that are just relics. They're relics. Get them out, please. Get them out. I'm so sick of these lifers that been in there and they just stick to their roots and they don't conform to change and they don't want to look at things realistically. It's just so ridiculous. It really is. That leaving Greg Maddox off is just so insane. It really is. It's so insane. Javon checking in says it was insane run by Howie. Talk about the 4 years. He says the only player comparable might be Shohei Ohtani or Aaron Judge, but that's how good Howard was. Think about that. That's how good Howard was. That right now we could actually compare him to Shohei Ohtani and Aaron Judge. That 58 home run season, wow. And he brings up the get me to the plate moment in the playoffs for Colorado. And I forgot about that. That was that year, the first year they went. Remember that the first, and they lost, and they got that. They got that taste. They got that feel, right? Just get me to the plate, man, and that's basically a rook. Obviously 25-year-old rookie, but that's a rook right there, saying, "Yo, I'm putting this team on my back." And I'll tell you, man, he never looked back. One of my worst memories, honestly. Like everybody talks about, in Philadelphia, what are some of your bad memories, right? Everybody talks about the Super Bowl. Everybody talks about Rondé Barber. Not me, man. I honestly think my worst memory is Ryan Howard blowing his Achilles out in that St. Louis Cardinals game. Only because he tried so hard, man. And just the image of him sitting at the batter's box, not being able to move. No, he blew out his Achilles, knew they were losing in the playoffs, knew he was going to be out for a year and probably never be the same, because when you're that big and you push off that much on that foot and you blow out an Achilles, you're never going to be the same. That to me was one of the worst, if not the worst moments I remember in Philadelphia sports history. Nothing else to me tops that. Nothing. Because that signified not only the end of one of the best players that we will ever see, not only in Philadelphia, but in the game of Major League Baseball, but also that signified the beginning of the end of that Phillies run. And that's what sucked. That's what sucked. He didn't deserve that. He didn't deserve that. That team, honestly, that whole series to me was on Cliff Lee blowing that game. That's a topic for another day. But to be able to just be manhandled by the Cardinals was ridiculous. We had so much more talent than them. Chris Carpenter comes in here and schools us. Are you kidding? Chris Carpenter, like I respect Chris Carpenter, but come on, stop. And that's what sucks, man. We had to watch our big piece get destroyed, man. Get destroyed. Yep. Joe, there you go. Right there. Before that 72. Joe's thinking we're always on the same page, man. 4-0. 4-0. And Cliff Lee blew it. Cliff Lee blew it, man. It sucks. Because, again, if he doesn't blow that game, maybe, think about it. If he doesn't blow that game, Ryan Howard probably doesn't blow his Achilles out. Because Ryan Howard probably never gets up to plate at that time. And that sucks. Like, that was kind of the downfall of everything. And so we had to rebuild and go forward, obviously, right? But that's where everything was just done. And Javon brings up a great point. He talks about that Achilles injury devastated me. And then he somehow, and this is good, because we all knew that he was never going to be the same. Always remember he was never going to be the same, but he still busted his ass, come back, and hit 20 plus home runs in his last 3 seasons with the Phillies, and obviously was not even the same guy, but still went out there and produced. He says, I always remember the Hamels no hitter with Howard and Ruiz. Yes. Great moment. Great moment. Another guy that, you know, I don't know if it's because I think of so many dominant performances, but I don't know where people would rank this nationally. And for that, I'd love to get somebody on and I'll work on it. Like I'm dreaming if I could ever get my idol when it comes to baseball, sports writing is always going to be Jason Stark. Love Jason Stark. Read everything about him, all his columns, all his tweets. The dude is an analytical genius, in my opinion. Another guy who doesn't live on hot takes. Another guy who doesn't fabricate anything. Man, it's just due diligence, and that art has been lost. I'm sorry, in media today, and it's a shame. It's a shame, and I would love to ask a guy like Jason Stark and say that MVP run, that postseason run from Cole Hamels, where does that rank among one of the most dominating performances from a starting pitcher of all time? We've seen some very dominant, legendary performances, but I'm telling you, Cole Hamels was hitting 95, 96 on that gun, and he was throwing the best changeup anybody's ever seen. He was unhittable. He was automatic. And honestly, that's why I said, I'm sorry if I'm going on tangents here, but I like to, I like to speak what's on my mind. I don't have a producer next to me saying, yo, stop, stop, stop. So what comes to mind is when I was watching Zach Wheeler and I was watching him pitch on the mound last year, and he was dominant. And I was thinking about Cole Hamels. I was thinking about Doc Holliday. When these dudes just commanded the mound. Now Joe writes, it's another good one. Chilling with this 93 runner with the D-backs and the Sox were nasty. Listen, I may not agree with his political views and some of his idiotic comments, but goddamn, that boy can pitch, man. That boy can pitch. Man, those D-backs and Red Sox performances were insane. To think that he was on that Diamondback squad, right? When you think about that staff, even with the Red Sox, it's just like, and to think he was in Philly, man. Remember, that's the crazy thing. Kurt Schilling was in Philly, then he leaves Philly and he becomes this Hall of Fame workhorse. And that's what's crazy. And you think about dominant performances. Again, that was not dominant, or I should say not just dominant, but legendary. Legendary. I remember watching the World Series year in and year out. I mean, let's face it. I'll go back. I'll go way back, man. Remember, what about when Oakland was really in the driver's seat in those late 80s? Dave Stewart. Everybody, my man Dave Stewart, wow, blowing people away, man. Dave Stewart was immense. And again, even when Minnesota, the Kirby Puckett years, I mean, you had a guy like, everybody forgets Jack Morris. Jack Morris had a hell of a year. I'm trying to think who was on that team with Kirby. Ken Herbeck, Tommy Herr. God, you got me really, really thinking here. If anybody can name any of those twins on that squad, like I said, all I remember is I can remember Tommy Herr at second base, Ken Herbeck at first, obviously Kirby in center field, Frank Viola, that was it. Yes, Frank Viola and Jack Morris. Wow, like two studs. Like nobody remember Danny Gladden. That's another one, right? Like, I forgot that that Dave Stewart's name was Smoke Stewart. I forget. Again, nobody talks about that because we refuse. We refuse to go back, and we're always. I'm always going to remember this. I'm always going to remember the Sonny Hill interview I had when he kept saying the latest and greatest, because that's all we talk about is the latest and greatest. I threw on NBA Network tonight, and I'm watching the 1987 slam dunk contest. Nobody's talking about Jerome Kersey. And that now, I didn't even know Tom Chambers was a supersonic at that time, and he was in that slam dunk contest. But Jerome Kersey, like, does anybody talk about, even though the Bulls completely destroyed the Portland Trailblazers in '92? Does anybody even talk about that squad? Nobody. I bet you if you ask anybody under the age of 30 and you say, name me that starting lineup, nobody could probably even name you anybody. Terry Porter, Clyde Glide, Buck Williams, Kevin Duckworth. Nobody's even talking about that. Dude, that team was nasty. Terry Porter was a dog. He was nasty, man. There's a reason why they got out there to the NBA Finals in the West. Jerome Kersey. Okay, well, I was watching the dunk contest. He was 24 years old. Jerome Kersey was one of the most chiseled athletes I've ever seen at that time. That's how, listen, this dude was built like they literally just sculpted him. That's how good, that's how big he was. Buck Williams, like everybody talks about the rec specs, right? That was Buck Williams made them synonymous. Man, he was just a dude who lived down at the box, man, and just bumped all day long. He got those hard and tough rebounds and those rough fouls, and you could count on them, and that's where Horace Grant. He was their Horace Grant. Right. And again, people don't talk about that. We're always talking about the latest and greatest, man. I remember it so well. I was a huge Portland guy. Yeah, he was, man. He said, Joe says Jerome Kersey was built like Seth Joyner. He was built like a freaking linebacker. Jerome Kersey was huge, man. He was huge. That was a really good squad. That was a really good squad. I think Mike Dunleavy was the head coach of them at that time. Dunleavy had a good squad out there in Portland, man. Again, they just ran into to his airness, dude. Like, you think about all the teams that ran into Jordan. They just ran into Jordan. And it sucks, but we don't talk about those teams because of that. You have to talk about these teams, man. You have to talk about these teams. You think about it, and if you actually did a segment of your always like old school, right? Taking it back year after year, you would be amazed. I used to do a weekend show I was doing, and right now my weekends are too hectic, but I was doing kind of like a This Week in Baseball kind of thing, but it was This Week in Sports, and I just took a year. And I brought up some of the defining moments of that year all across the sports landscape. Even included wrestling. I'm a big music guy. You guys know I'm a big hip hop guy. So I brought in some music as well. And it was amazing. It made you really think. Like what we forget so much. We forget so much. And for the older guys like myself and Joe, who are, I would say, sports historians, we indirectly forget sometimes because we're so busy in everyday life, right? With our kids and our families and what's going on with the local teams. It's not easy to just take a step back and start looking. But I'll tell you what, when you can do it without Googling and you can do it without that's how you could tell. I just got into a conversation with my son today, and he's 16 years old. And I said to him, have you ever, you start thinking about what you want to do, man? Like, what do you think you want to do? I'm not saying you have to be decided right now, but I think you should have some sort of direction in the sense that what you want to pursue. It can always change, obviously. But he started talking about sports, and he was like, Dad, I really like what you do. And I said, that's great. I said, but you have to be able to be like a sponge. You know, the things that you watch right now, the thing, because again, the knowledge that I get and the memories that I get are legitimately from watching, not reading, from watching, like from watching. I still have memories in my head about Bo Jackson leading off the All-Star game with a home run. Still have in Anaheim, I think it was, right? I still have memories in my head. It's just it's what I watch and I listen and I read and I told him, I said, listen, man, you impressed me. He said, what do you mean? I said, the other day, he hit me up and I love it. I got a group message with my boys and I have two sons and we'll talk sports all the time. And, he was going back and forth to me with Jared Goff because he knows I'm not a Jared Goff guy. But we were getting in a conversation and I was trying to explain to him, listen, this is how you not formulate an argument, but enhance your argument. And I said, you don't have to be debated. I said, but you can enhance your argument by essentially repeating, not word for word, but the historical information to back up your argument. And he was spitting off the Detroit Lions record with Jared Goff 3 years in a row, and he was spot on. And I said, how did you remember all that? He's like, I don't know. I was, I got curious and I remember people talking about it. And I said, bro, see right there's the gift. That the gift and it's the gift of being a sports historian, man. And that's what's great. And I think, we all need to do that. I mean, my man David checking in, he says, Tony, let me ask you a question. World Series 2004, who should have won instead of the Red Sox? Well, listen, that's something I'm going to have to Google. Only because I have to think about legitimately who the hot teams were in 2004 at that time. I'm going to assume the Yankees had a bomb squad in 2004. I'm going to assume the Blue Jays at that time. I'm going to assume the White Sox. I mean, didn't they have wasn't that like the Ozzie Guillen, Robert Ventura, Frank Thomas, Blackjack McDowell, Bobby Thigpen, maybe as the closer. I think they had a pretty good year in the early 2000s. He says if Jose Guillen stayed with the Angels, didn't get cut by Mike, manager world, we would have won our second World Series in your year in 2004. Interesting. If Jose Guillen, there's a name, Jose Guillen. Wow. That's a name for the ages right there. That's a real. I'm gonna have to go back and look at 2004. But let me ask you guys about this while we're on the baseball topic. I really want to get into. I'm glad because I want to get into some baseball talk tonight. And what I love about it is MLB is starting to release their top 10 lists, and those top 10 lists I think are really really interesting, really interesting. And the reason why is we're going to look at two tonight. And it's going to be the top 10 first baseman and the top 10 second baseman. Now, this is ranked by MLB Network. Okay. It's ranked by MLB Network. Again, this is HRS Late Nights. Make sure you're subscribed. Make sure you're liking. I don't want to keep saying it over and over again, but listen, you know the deal, right? You know the deal. All your support, greatly appreciate it. The link is in the bio. The link is in the comments. If you want to call in, talk about whatever you want, man. Life, sports, something good happened, something bad happened. Lines are open, man. All you do is click on that link on your phone. It's audio only. Like I always say, it's audio only. That's why I'm doing this right now. It's full transparency. I'm sitting in my pajamas right now and I'm talking sports, man. It is what it is. It's what I love to do. And I'm drinking some coffee. And I have my cup that says, don't be a Richard, that my wife bought me because I'm known to be a Richard from time to time. And I'm trying not to be a Richard anymore. 2024 is going to be the year of no Richardness from me. How's that? Does that even make sense? I just making my own word. I don't know. Joe says, T, check out the book 60 feet 6 inches. See, now here we go. Author sat with Bob Gibson and Reggie Jackson, and they talked how baseball was no nonsense back then and their competitive and intimidating style. I'm writing that down, man. I'm writing that down. I'm not a huge reader, but I will tell you stuff like that I read. Books like that I'll read. I really would. I forget I had who did I have on with me last year? He had a great book that I read about cheating in baseball. I got to get it, man. I got to get it. It was really, really good. It was a really good book, Joe. I'm going to get it. Hold on. Let me go grab it real fast. Hold on. I'm going to get it. I know I have. Here we go. Here we go. Really, really good book. It was called, it was by Dan Levette. Right? Dan Levette, who's been on MLB Network, was an analyst, right? It's called Intentional Balk. Baseball's thin line between baseball's thin line between innovation and cheating. Fantastic book. It was a really, really, I mean, everything about should we care, should we not, what was going on. Just a really good read, man. Really, really good read. David says, right now, I'm watching the World Series 2003 Yankees. Dude, my man David is a baseball historian. He's talking, wow, he is talking, geez, 2003. He says, oh, yeah, I forgot to tell you, Brock Lesnar is a Scott Stevens wannabe. Really? Listen, I like Brock. I like Brock a lot. I think Brock gets a bad rap, to be honest with you. But let's talk Major League Baseball top 10. Okay. Top 10 first baseman. Very interesting. And I'm actually blown away at this. And I want to ask the opinion of everybody. And I'm looking at this, no bias, completely unbiased right now. Freddie Freeman, number one. Okay. Freddie Freeman, number one. Bryce Harper, number two. I'm shocked. And I'm a Bryce guy. But they put him at number two. Number three, Matt Olson. Number four, Paul Goldschmidt. Number five, Yandy Diaz. Number six, the Bear P. Alonso. I can't stand. Number seven, Vlad Guerrero Jr. Number eight, Brandon Belt. Wow. Number nine, Christian Walker. And obviously the rookie had a great year last year. Number 10, Tristan Casas from Boston. Very, very interesting list. I am shocked that Bryce Harper, that they actually gave love to the Philly native because, you know, it now is going to be his permanent position, but he doesn't have even a full year technically of eligibility. So I'm really, really, really surprised. But Joe makes a good point. Harper defensively was extremely impressive. You're right. He saved Turner many times. Yes, he did. And here's the thing too, Joe, which is crazy about that, which I can't wait to see this year, is Harper. He was impressive with being hindered by the elbow, with having that mental, block every now and then saying, ooh, I better not go that hard, even though it's hard for Harper not to go hard, right? But he definitely impressed me. And again, Joe, you know why he did? Because this dude's a student of the game. He worked his ass off. He worked his ass off because he did not want to go out there and, number one, disappoint the organization, disappoint the fan base, or disappoint himself. Now, Matt Olson comes over from Oakland, goes to Atlanta, and just completely obliterates every baseball thrown to him. I did not think Matt Olson was that good. But for some reason, If you put that Atlanta Braves jersey on from another team, you just add 10% to your freaking home run total. You add 20% to your batting average. I don't know what it is with Atlanta, but it's almost like when you go to Atlanta, you just automatically excel to another level. Matt Olson was left to die in Oakland, and now he's in Atlanta, and he's showing out. Now, David, why would you say that? Why would you say Bryce Harper should be traded? I don't understand that. Bro, you're gonna have to elaborate on that on me. Why should Bryce Harper be traded? I'm kind of curious. Are you okay over there? I'm just wondering. I don't know why you think he should be traded. Are you saying that, because I think he's going to get an extension and he's going to be praised even more, or I mean paid even more. If I'm being quite honest, because he's eerily underpaid right now. Very, very underpaid. When you think about it. Think about it. It's just it is crazy, man. It's crazy. Let's see what the explanation is. Joe says, "Oh, man, that's right," because he has Acuna, Ronald Acuna, who I obviously don't agree with. Another one who thinks he's bigger than the game. When you like, you want to know how to get under my skin. You want to know how to get full out Jigsaw is wear a shirt that says "I love Ronald Acuna," and you're Ronald Acuna. Like seriously, I like come on, bro. Like, all that immaturity is why Atlanta always chokes. They do. They're immature, an immature baseball team. They don't know how to handle their business. They don't know how to go amongst the moments of the game and just be professional ball players and not be immature little T-ball players. And that's what they do. And unfortunately, the fans got in their head. They get in their head, and lo and behold, they choke. Explain to me any other reason why 2 years in a row the Philadelphia Phillies have unseated the Atlanta Braves. There's no other explanation, man. Zero. But you're right, Joe. He has Acuna and Ozzy Albies in front of him. I mean, that lineup is stacked. That's a lineup that's stacked. So, yeah, that top 10 list for first baseman, I'm honestly surprised that they gave Bryce Harper that much love. Really. Yes. You were thinking exactly what, man, exactly. You were thinking that was my next point. We're always right there, dude. We are always, it's so funny, man. It is so funny. We're always right there. Philly's mind, I'm not going to say a word, even though FCC rules don't apply to YouTube, but he mind fudged. I'll say fudged. He mind fudged Mr. Strider. Strider was having an unbelievable Cy Young year. He was unhittable. But again, they got into his head. And he starts second guessing 2 years in a row. It wasn't just 1 year. It was 2 years in a row. Spencer Strider got mind fudged by the Philadelphia Phillies. It's crazy. Crazy. Now let's get to another top 10 list because I'm going to cut off at 12:30 again tonight. Long day, a lot of stuff going on, good stuff. But this is the one that got me. And shout out to Javon because he's the one who threw it out there first. And I was like, wait, hell no. How are you like? And again, I need to know, man. I need to know how you come up with this top 10 list. And they're MLB's top 10 second baseman. Number 1 is Mookie Betts. Number 2, Jose Altuve. Number 3, Marcus Semien. Man, he is so underrated. Another Oakland A's guy goes to Texas, switches a uniform, leads off a tremendous lineup. Stud. Luis Arias, We know about him, batting champion. This guy, number 5, honestly, I've always been a huge fan. Always been a huge fan. And watching the World Series or watching the playoffs and everything after just made me even bigger fan. And that's Ketel Marte. I play a lot of fantasy baseball. I play a lot of DFS, a lot of sports betting. And Ketel Marte was one of those guys that he was a consistent guy in my lineup because he always had positive point production, I call it, where he's always giving you some type of points. He's always around the baseball. He's always doing something, and he's a hell of a player who does not crack under pressure. Then you have Matt McLean from the Reds. There's Andres Jimenez from the Cubs. Then you have Eduardo Julian from the Twins, Zach Geloff from the A's, and then Nico Owner from the Cubs. Where's Bryson Stott? Did I miss something here? How the hell is Bryson Stott not on that list? You mean to tell me that Bryson Stott is not a top 10 second baseman? I don't understand how you leave him off the list. Am I being biased? I mean, am I living in moments? I don't think I am. We're talking about a future leadoff 300 hitter, a dude who is unfathomed or what word am I looking for? Unfazed, I'll say, at second base. And he don't make your top 10? Something's wrong with that. Something got missed. Joe always had something good. Joe says Stott probably off the list because the Canadian, meaning Topper, would have bat him against lefties in the regular season. Even though, man, Joe, he's too good to be left off that list. I'm sorry. I'm a baseball fan, but I'll tell you right now, I couldn't pick Matt McLean out of a lineup. I couldn't pick Zach Geloff out of a lineup. I have no idea. Well, Andres Jimenez, I just, sorry. I just don't. And that's the thing. Like, maybe I'm being naive here. Maybe I should do better homework. I could see those top 5 guys, but you mean to tell me that Bryson Stott's not between 6 and 10? I have a hard time believing that. I almost feel like somebody like literally forgot. Maybe somebody just forgot Bryson Stott was left off the list. Listen, we watched him up close last year, and some of the things he was able to do, the way he grew as a player. I mean, obviously, everybody remembers a Grand Slam, right? Everybody remembers that, but I mean, you just got to look at what he's been, his line of work, his short line of work, right? His short line of work, and that's what I'm trying to look at, man. Like, that's just, if you look at his standard fielding, when 1 year, okay, when he played 149 games, started 144 games, had a .992 fielding percentage, a .992 fielding percentage. Again, this dude is being overlooked. I honestly think so. I think he's being overlooked. You look at what he's been able to do throughout the course of the last 2 years. Come on. I mean, listen, just look at the average that goes from 234 to 280. The home runs that go up +5, 10 to 15. The second base hits that almost double. The hits that go up 64. The runs scored go up 20. Listen, man, like, everything about Bryson Stott, total bases almost doubles. His slugging percentage goes from 358 to 419. He almost hits 300. He hits 280, but I think he's a future 300 hitter. And obviously, a lot of that credit goes to 2 people. That's Kevin Long and Bryce Harper. who gave him that quick swing, gave him an idea on how to do. And here's a guy making $734,000, right? Now he's another guy. He's a guy you're going to have to pay, man. Him and Alec Boehm. Alec Boehm going through the arbitration right now. I hate that arbitration stuff. I hate that they're fighting over like, $1 million or $400,000, but they're going to go pay somebody $50 million a year. It's like it doesn't make any sense. And I get it. It's all about the union. It's about making sure that the market dictates what the players are worth. I understand, but it's just hard to fathom sometimes, man. It's hard to fathom. Joseph Stott will have a year this season. I think he's going to make a huge name for himself with his overall progress. I will give you that. I'm still going to stick to. I think this is the year of Alec Boehm, but man, it'd be great if it was the year of Alec Boehm and Bryson Stott. It definitely would be fantastic. I think both of those kids have such a bright future. I just think that the overall build of Alec Boehm, man, he puts it all together. We talked about it before, man. 30 home runs is not out of the question. I'm just telling you. I think Joe said that too. Javon says Gelf was a rookie with the A's and didn't even play a ton of games. See what I mean? That's what I'm saying. I don't understand. I know they're just not going by stats, but I think they just don't. I don't think they know who Bryson Stott is. I honestly don't. I don't think they did enough research. I think that's a lazy list, man. I think those top 5 or 6 are legit, but I think everything after that's a lazy list. Not just because I'm a Philadelphia fan, not just because I'm a Bryson Stott believer, but because you didn't do your homework. Javon says Stott saved the middle of the Phillies infield a ton, man. He made some ridiculous plays. Ridiculous plays. He really did. But yeah, this could be a really, really, really good year, man. This could be a really good year for both of those guys. And if it is, sky's the limit for this team. Sky is the limit for this team. Now, I want to transition a little bit. And I want to talk about the Casket Classic. You guys know I like to talk about wrestling. I'm a huge wrestling guy. And I watched 2 individuals, 1991. Oh no, I'm sorry, not 91. This was the Royal Rumble match with Shawn Michaels, Heartbreak Kid, and the infamous Undertaker. And when you say classic, because again, you look at the 2 performers at that time. 2 guys in their prime, in my opinion, at that time. It was for the WWF title. And when you break it down, man, like it's 1998. And Shawn Michaels, this is at a time where you have the battles going on, right? The very beginning of the wars. Very, very, very beginning. It was like, WWE still had like the WWF in your house shows, and they had some of the ridiculous characters, right? Like the Bushwhackers, and they still had that. So they were still trying to, adjust, and why Ted Turner was over there overpaying all those guys and creating a whole NWO kind of deal. But at the 98 Royal Rumble, Undertaker, Shawn Michaels in a casket match, which you say Casket Classic, because it was a ridiculous match. We all talk about the ladder match for the Intercontinental title between Razor Ramon and Shawn Michaels. And that was another classic match. But this, to me, because it was Undertaker and because it involved Kane and Paul Bear. Remember, this is where, you had that battle between Undertaker and Kane, but then all of a sudden, you think that they're good and they're legit, and then he makes an appearance, and he's the one who comes out. He double crossed the Undertaker, choke slams him into the casket, and Shawn Michaels retains the belt. But that entire match was good. It really was. And the crazy thing is, that's when they tried to do that whole storyline where Paul Bearer goes with Kane and he locks Undertaker inside and they roll him up the eye. They want to set him on fire. That's when they did all that crazy stuff right there. But I'm just looking at these two performers, and obviously everybody talks about the WrestleMania match later on in their careers, right? When they did it twice. And, they were talking about, let's retire the Undertaker. That was before the Undertaker streak was beaten, because anybody thought, and me personally, if anybody was going to beat the streak, or stop the streak, it was going to be Shawn Michaels. Because remember, that was the second version of Shawn Michaels. You had Shawn Michaels, the OG Shawn Michaels, the Montreal Screwjob Shawn Michaels, the DX Shawn Michaels, the OG DX Shawn Michaels. And then he goes out for some time, has some injuries, never thought he was going to wrestle again. And then he comes back in that Elimination Chamber match against Triple H and puts on one hell of a show. Obviously, you could tell he wasn't all jacked like he used to be, right? It took him some time. Always was going to have bad knees. But that second run of the Showstopper, to me, was better than his first. That second run for the Showstopper, Mr. WrestleMania, whatever you want to call him, HBK, who, for my money, I say this and people say no way, but for my money, best wrestler of all time. Not afraid to say it. For my money, if you take everything that Shawn Michaels was able to do, I still think he's my number one. And we'll get into that at another time, because we're gonna do something fun in the coming next week when we talk about Royal Rumble. I talk about, if you could pick your top entrant to win the Royal Rumble, who would it be? And just going back in time, man. Just going back in time. My main guy is HBK. Listen, HBK, he had to learn from a lot of outside interference. He had to go be reborn again. He was hopped up on all kinds of painkillers and a lot of big stories behind HBK. We already know that. But when he came back, the reason why I think he's the GOAT is because Shawn Michaels had to come back into an era where he was a reborn again Christian and felt very strongly against some of the sexual innuendos and some of the terminology. And he was able to look past that and not get involved with that and still go out there and perform another version of DX. Another version of himself. Oh, when he came back, he was like a twig, and he worked himself up, man, to put on some unbelievable matches in WrestleMania. Obviously was the guy that put Ric Flair off, because Ric Flair obviously wanted Shawn Michaels to be the guy to do it. And you saw Shawn say, "I love you." We all see it. He pinned him. He quick hugged him, man. He knew, but that's how much Ric Flair saw to Shawn Michaels. You hear Ric Flair talk right now, and he talks about Shawn Michaels. Shawn Michaels, to me, is my GOAT. If you, I don't do Mount Rushmores or anything like that. I'm just saying overall, who gave most back to the game, and right now is giving back to the game as the guy at NXT, the GM of NXT, the guy who runs NXT, taking over for Dusty Rhodes, is the guy helping these guys and girls on the promo, helping these guys and girls in the ring. Shawn Michaels. I love Shawn Michaels. And the only guy that has his own theme song that's never changed, man. That's him singing it. And that's the great part about Shawn Michaels. So, man, we took a big trip down memory lane tonight, which was great. I loved it. Loved every minute of it. Nonstop comments, nonstop interaction. Without David and Joe and Adam and Javon, the show doesn't go on, man. And I appreciate you guys. I do. I wanted to get into another topic, but I'm gonna keep it for tomorrow because I want to kind of dive into it a little bit more. But something that really perturbed me in this sports media industry that happened today that I just read about that I think is ridiculous. But I'm not shocked. I'm not shocked. Again, man, this is HRS Late Nights Heat Ratio Sports. I am Tony Cutillo. You catch me every day here, man. Every day doing something. But for the most part, I think I'm going to scale it back. It's going to be Monday to Thursday. Because, man, I need a night off, especially because I'm doing Sirius this weekend on Saturday. I need my voice to get a little break, and we're supposed to get some snow tomorrow, so I'll probably be out shoveling anyway. So Monday through Thursday, taking it from 11 to 1, 11 to 12, 11 to 12:30. Have some good interviews for you planned next week. I'm trying to get my man Nick Picone on because he is a huge wrestling guy. Straight Shooters podcast, been doing it for a long time. Him and Vaughn Johnson doing a great job. He's always doing some really good stuff when it comes to wrestling, look backs, watch memory watches, you name it. But I know he's going to have a lot to say when it comes to the Royal Rumble that's coming up, man. That's coming up in a week. I love it. So excited. I'm like a kid in a candy store when it comes to the Royal Rumble. But like I always say, man, I appreciate everything. Appreciate the interaction. If you do not subscribe to the channel yet, make sure you are a subscriber. Make sure you're liking these shows and bring your comments in. Past, future, and present doesn't matter. You'll see a bunch of shorts. My guy, my intern's doing a hell of a job putting them up there. I'm giving him an idea of what to do and what to say. He's picking some really good moments for me, which is great. So make sure you give those a like. One of the ones I think almost went viral. It's up to like 3,000 talking about Roman Reigns and The Rock, which is cool. So HRS Late Nights, man. Heat Ratio Sports doing some really, really good things. Got some more announcements next week, possibly a new show to come on. And I think the Final Judgment will be back on February 1st. Instead of a show, we're going to make that into a segment. Kind of like the Bell Ring Report for Dave Gleckner. So you can get the Final Judgment with Tony Cutillo, which is going to be me picking one topic. That's it. One topic. And giving you my opinion and looking for some interaction from everybody else. But as always, man, we are here, whether it be morning, noon, or night, for your listening pleasure. And with that, like I always say, make sure do something good tomorrow. Do something good tomorrow. Okay? Maybe shovel a sidewalk, brush off a car, whatever it may be, but be safe out there. Watch the drive and don't run anybody's bumper and give enough room to be able to stop. I want to see somebody get hurt out there. As always, everybody, for Tony Cutillo, everybody stay safe, stay healthy. I will catch you back here.